The Bible in Revelation speaks of mixing animals together. We live in a pagan society, and most Christians were pagans at first. They knew exactly what the pagans were doing because a lot of the Christian temples were in the basement or in the same building as pagan temples, going back to Rome and Europe, as Christianity began to spread, early Christianity. In fact, they even styled their cult after a pagan cult. You know, as far as being a secret society, right? They were thinking that way. And Jesus was describing things in terms of paganism. That's part of what goes over people's heads, okay? Because the early Christians were pagans before Christians. So if you don't understand Egyptian mythology and that the Egyptians are black, you're probably not going to go to heaven, right? Because you have no idea what he's talking about, what he's referring to, what are these other books, what kind of people wrote them, put them into context, why did they write them, and so on. You have no clue. You're just kind of like, God, I believe in you, and I'm not too smart. Okay? So when you see that leopards can jump 20 feet in the air, hares, you know, the rabbit, the hare, doesn't want you to get close. Okay? Neither does the hawk, and the leopard doesn't want to get injured. Do I really have to explain to you that the people, the martial artists, the first recorded martial artists, whose families united Egypt, you know, from southern Egypt, deeper into Africa. And they went north and conquered the mixed blacks in the north. Okay, and their Semite friends and the other races, Indo-Europeans who were there with them, and everyone else there, you know. And you can see them on the still of the races, the kind of people who were there in the north. And you see the more blacker and wasset kind of typical Egyptian look. The typical Egyptian look comes from Meccan because people like me were the ruling class and we had the best of everything. So you see the leopard can jump 20 feet in the air. The falcon flies. You see why the fact that I start off playing basketball and understanding how to maneuver in the air and on the ground makes it hopeless for people to do aerial techniques. For the same reason, you know, as two kids playing basketball, that same person, especially if they're not black, with all due respect, wouldn't have a chance. So when you look at the maneuverability of the black man and the higher understanding of the basketball player, and how I've studied martial arts for many, many years, and every variation of every aerial technique ever displayed, you know, you can see how they're forced to deal with my speed. And we all know if you're doing an aerial attack and somebody is more agile than you are, and they're faster, you've doomed yourself to a limited set of options, flying through the air. And you better land it, or I might throw you off. You might land on the back of your head. I might stab you in the neck while you're in the air. I might smash your balls now that they've moved higher up, and it's, you know, I can strike them with more power, theoretically, than striking low. You know, there's a lot of reasons it's a bad idea. And the fact that I'm taller makes I can grab you by the neck and just throw you, smash you down too. There's a lot of things. Think about Street Fighter 2. As much as it's a video game, blah, 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 there are a lot of those techniques are actual martial art techniques. Obviously not, you know, throwing fireballs or whatever. But, you know, look at Guile and I believe Chun-Li. They were able to throw people in the air, right? It shows you, hey, it's a bad idea to take on a kung fu person or a guy built like a military person doing an aerial technique. That was the message to everyone who does martial arts, and nobody missed it. But those people who don't, they were like, oh, it's just a video game. And so it is with the Bible when they talk about animals and paganism, which was started by martial artists. The Egyptian paganism, which influenced and controlled the Mediterranean, including the southern Mediterranean, the Middle East, and the most relevant parts of Northeast Africa. You know, we are the guys. We are the guys nobody could beat. We are the guys who united the world and who gave you religion. Okay, we gave you the religious language. Listen to me very carefully. We gave you the concepts and the preconceived notions people had during the time, right, that allowed them to become Christians in the first place. Or else, God would have been a foreign concept. So even talking about God in the first place was something that needed there to be paganism, pagans first, or Jews first, before you could say that. Or else, what are you talking about? If we were all atheists, and that was our nature, it's like, what are you talking about? So the self-direction of humanity is the selfish direction of humanity by racists who are pagans and Jews, like the people who built King Solomon's temple, the Knights Hospitallers. And in the hospitals, there used to, key phrase, used to be a debate about whether it is okay to do the bidding of the New World Order. And when Kodo was defeated by Makakao, okay, or whatever his name is, he was carried off by the medical students. It is related to the dying debate right now going on. Corporations are using people to win the debate against natural medicine. It is these pills that have studies that work versus, this Chinese and this Western and African and Middle Eastern and Indian and blah, blah, blah. Natural medicines, right? Herbs, medicine men. There's a debate between, hey, can we cure our own people who have our culture with our natural medicine? Or do we have to do it the white man's way? Obviously, you're taken to the psych ward and not a medicine man. So you can see that debate has been lost by the good guys. And they're killing off the natural doctors right now. And no, that is not a conspiracy theory. There are some lies and misinformation, a lot of misdirection associated with that. Social media sites and people sending you to sites to give you viruses and stuff and to put government surveillance software on your computer. Spyware, why is it called that, right? Spyware, adware, right? These people add. These are the people who add to the Bible and take away from it. These are the people who spy on you. And believe it or not, that is related to why they call it the name. It's not just a coincidence. Do your research. It's part of Western eugenic philosophy. Eugenics is the core of Western philosophy. The core of Western philosophy is the people who cannot beat black martial artists saying, what kind of world do we want to create? And they're racist, jealous, and they have a wolf mentality. They are the bull that covers the light as a result. They are the Cain that kills Abel. They are the jealous, bitter people. They are the Esau that didn't want Jacob to fulfill his destiny. And so on. It is sad, but Hades represents the spirit of European people. That's why it is a European deity. And when they had the technology to come back, the Hellenization was the Hades. The Hellenization, right? It's right there in the word, democracy, demonocracy. We're going to keep the N words out. Demonocracy. And they're too ignorant to understand the hidden G or the hidden N. It's related. Nigeria, okay? The word by nigga, Nigeria, and other variations, right? It is part of the G in the N, right? Gangsta, Norteño, the G in the N. These things are more connected than you think they are when you truly examine this thing. Well, who are the Norteños? With all due respect, I don't want to talk about your gang, but this is an important point that I have to make. Well, some of them are black people, right? Afro-Hispanics, right? Black Hispanics. And who are the Mexican mafia, at least in the beginning? Remember, regardless of what's going on now, to understand it, put it into context. In the beginning, it was these Hispanic guys from the north, and some of them were mixed with black, the untold story, right? And then there was the more white Hispanic supporting, drug cartel connected guys who supported the Satan worshiping and other white prison gangs like the Nazi lowriders, who made their name in a way that they would ensure that a large faction of Mexicans or Hispanics would always take their side, right? Nazi lowriders. Saying, hey, we have this culture that overlaps with the Mexican culture, be it biker gangs or classic cars, and so on. Well, there's a lot of things I want to say. I don't want to bore you to death, so let me just wrap this up. To make a long story short, it is the self-direction of humanity, the jealous and selfish, envious direction of humanity by people we all know are bitches. You take the royal family, okay? You put them in the battlefield. You take the royal families of every country, you put them in the battlefield, right? And you imagine if they have people, the best fighters from their race with them. Okay, I have 100 of the best Igbos. They have 100 of the best Asians. Blah blah blah. Obviously, no matter who fights the blacks, we're gonna win, right? I mean, we can recreate this experiment if you want. We're gonna win. A bunch of Kimbo Slice, Cali Muscle type niggas, Chuco Mecas, and Che type niggas are gonna beat any other race, hands down. So what happens logically? We can recreate this for 100 years, and it's gonna come out the same way, right? Until the eugenics finally start twisting things. So all these other races were expelled. They knew our martial arts were better. It's a no-brainer to see what happened. They developed their inferior martial arts out of jealousy. They've been drugging people. They were chemists, alchemists. They've been drugging people using magic tricks and lies and psychology and commonalities in religion to get people that are your friends, neighbors, families, and people you respect in your community to, get you to do their bidding, using corporations like the Ford Foundation and corporate partnerships like Kaiser Hospital and the University of Phoenix to give certain people a job. I remember on record, and I'm sure they probably are deleting the recording as soon as they hear this, right? I asked University of Phoenix, can you get me a job afterward? And that was the most rude reaction I ever got. It was from a black guy there. When I asked that question, he knew I was, referring to the fact that they have corporate partnerships and they give privileged people, the pick of everything, the choice of everything, the first dabs, what's it called? They have first on everything. Everyone else gets the leftovers,